Heyo, Omni cats and Omni dogs and kittens, all you Omni fauna out there. It's Omnidog here from Omnidog's Vault. Thank you for tuning in to the definitive reading order for Ms. Tree. Now, if you're a fan of comics and crime comics, but if you're a fan of comics in general, this series should be on your radar because it is definitely some of the best crime comics I've ever read. Max Allan Collins and Terry Beatty. And so it's one of the best comics that I've ever read. Don't worry about it being a crime comic. It is really well written. Even if you don't love crime comics like I do, you will like this series. It's so well written and illustrated. But it was released out of order. And it was done on purpose, I found out. So a shout out goes to longtime viewer slash fan Smotlock, who brought that up to me, that they had not been released in proper order. Not 1 through 6. There's 6 of them. And they're all a little bit bigger than digest sized. And it's got a very kind of bouncing around publishing history. I think it was Eclipse, then Renegade, then DC. But there is a reason, and thank you to Smotlock for pointing this out to me, that they were out of order. And also thanks to my friend Will at Titan Comics, who made sure I got Fallen Tree, which just came out. This was book 4, and I'll explain later, but it just got released recently. These books are all really fun, really well written, and I'll get into that as we go through first the reason it was released out of order. The first one to be released, and I can take this sticky note off now because even especially me, get a little unorganized from time to time, and I have to make sure. First one was One Mean Mother. It is gently out of print right now, but I think I can make a good case to Titan that it needs to be reprinted, which I will try to do. I don't quite have the pull of the people over there at Very Fine Condition, but at least I can point it out. So in One Mean Mother, which was released first, Max Allan Collins himself says, "We are not beginning at the beginning." And he goes on to say, since they were going to reprint all of these, they wanted to put their best foot forward, so to speak, and put out what they considered artwork and stories and things that were what they considered to be the best example of Ms. Tree. And I can show you the difference in artwork because, as all artists do, Terry Beatty grows in his illustrating the book. He grows and gets better and better. You see that with just about everybody from their earliest work all the way up to their current work. And so I don't think it was a bad idea at all to do that, as long as you watch this video and you can get them all in order and they can be read in order. Now, they don't have to be read in order. There is a through line that goes through the whole book, the whole series, because it does start out, the very first one in our reading order is The Cold Dish. And it becomes apparent, well, first of all, it does help if you are introduced. This is how you're introduced to Ms. Tree, Ms. Michael Tree. And yes, that was her name, Ms. Tree, and her husband's name was also Michael. So let's get that out of the way right away. So this was in 1981. And let me just compare the artwork, and you'll see Terry Beatty's growth. This is at the beginning, and this is, well, it's in color too. This is back when they did the quarterly specials for DC. So you can see that, I'm not doing a good job here one-handing it. You can see that the art's fine, nothing wrong with it, but you can see how much he's grown as an artist by the time we get towards the end of the series. And, you know, it happens with good reason. Artists get better as they go along. And his art was fine in the beginning, but it got even better, more betterer. So let's talk about, first, we'll go over the reading order. Now, first, I'm going to tell you why you should be reading this book. Ms. Michael Tree, is one of the strongest female protagonists I've ever read. First of all, she shoots and kills people who need it. She is a private investigator, but she packs heat, and she's not afraid to use it on the bad guys. And there are a lot of bad guys. There's the mob. There are people out for her here and there. It's always in self-defense, but she's not afraid to use it. And she's tall. She's like 6 foot, solidly built, and she knows martial arts and the art of self-defense. So this is from The Cold Dish. And it does say, I forgot, it does go a little bit into color here. Is it all in color? Wait a second. Oh yeah, then they go to the kind of tone thing. Okay, so these parts in the beginning are in color. Then the second one, which is Deadline, they switch to the kind of tonal. This one's, you know, has shades of blue in it. Then the next issues have shades of red, which is cool. I like that. Red, red, red. This is light blue. Heroin withdrawal still continues with the shading technique. Fallen Tree still continues with that, which I think is effective. And then these last two, which were DC quarterlies, they are full color. So she kicks ass, takes no names, chewing bubblegum, all out of bubblegum, whatever you want to say. This is hard-hitting, great crime fiction. Why should you read it if you're not a crime comic fan? Because it's Max Allan Collins, and he writes exquisitely. He is a really, really good writer, and this is just some of the best comics you're gonna read in today's world. Even though some of them are, oh my gosh, 40 years old, they tackle hard-hitting subjects, and I'll get to that. He was writing, Max Allan Collins at the time, he was doing Dick Tracy comic strips, and he wanted to tackle stuff, current day stuff, that wouldn't fly in Dick Tracy. They're still hot button issues today as much as they were 30, 40 years ago, which is kind of remarkable and prescient on his part, and also kind of sad, but we're still dealing with some of those issues. And I will be using code words for them because I don't want to get demonetized by YouTube. But we start out with The Cold Dish, as I say, and so this is kind of her origin story. She's widowed right away. Her husband dies, and she inherits the private investigator business, and she gets better and better at investigating the more she does it. And it's set up really well. Whatever case she takes, it happens organically. Sometimes she's hired for a specific job. Sometimes a job just falls into her lap. But these are really very well done. Max Allan Collins, by the way, is the one that wrote road to perdition. The comic book came before the movie. The movie was great, but the comic came first, and that's a great comic and a great movie. So the I just saw a picture that makes me laugh. It says, through her thrilling casebook as she races to solve crimes of passion, murder, and intrigue, no case is too small, no violence is too extreme, just as long as it gets the job done. So this refers to it as the third volume. However, The Cold Dish is the first volume you should read. You can read them out of order. I did and was fine, but if you're new to it, it wouldn't hurt to start with The Cold Dish. You could start with Deadline if you can't find The Cold Dish. It's not an issue because she does a recap of the fact that she's widowed, but it does go along in kind of real time, because in one I'll get to it, in one series she has a lover and ends up getting pregnant and has to decide what to do with the baby. So it's not just a straight thing of crime comics. It deals with her personal life, and it deals with the group of people she has the agency with. And that's important because that will inform the last book that you read, because it's the end of the series and ties it up into I wanted to say really cool bow. Okay, yeah, it ties the whole thing up in a really cool bow. So The Cold Dish comes first. The second book is Deadline. And I can take my sticky notes off so you can see the covers. I remember reading these in singles 40 years ago. How is that possible? Deadline is number 2. So this is definitely hard-boiled fiction, crime fiction, but it's just really, really well done. She deals with a lot of things that I said were hot button issues back then and are still hot button still hot button issues right now. She deals with things like date essay. She deals with the pro-life, pro-choice item that is always in the news. Sure. She deals with young parents that can't take care of their kids. She deals, they cover racism, misogyny. Actually, any issue that is relevant today, he tackles 30 years ago. I think the last issue came out in 1991, so he tackles a lot of tough issues, but they don't hit you over the head. They're done organically, and they're done in a way that he doesn't just throw it in there for the sake of throwing it in there. Max Allan Collins writes it organically as part of the story, so it definitely doesn't hit you over the head with it. It's there. It can't be avoided. And he is, I think, kind of visionary in the fact that he tackled it when he did. So the second book is Deadline. The third book, which I will take I do need to keep these notes because I have a lot of notes. Heroin Withdrawal. So, okay, so here it is. Explosive issue. Right to Die is the name of the series. The series in here, Right to Die, Ashes to Ashes. So this does go back and forth. Oh, I'll tell you exactly why it was important to kind of read these in order, because at one point she gets committed, and they refer to it later. She refers to it as the Laughing Academy. And so you do need to read these in order as she gets checked in and out of the Laughing Academy. But she is in an asylum, and she has a way of dealing with things her way. So that was number 3. Number 4 is the most recently released Fallen Tree. And you can see as Terry Beatty's art has just gotten better and better. And her, let me see if I can find pictures of his, the people in her office, because it does, there's definitely a through line story about those people. There's a couple of Vietnam vets, Roger, and especially Dan, who lost an eye and has a hook for a hand due to his previous times in Vietnam. And he's also missing his brother. His brother never came back from Vietnam, and it's always haunted him. That's important to remember. And we deal with also the Satanic Panic. Not necessarily in this one, but in some other ones. So this is book 4. Book 5, One Mean Mother. Now at this point, it bounces back between DC quarterlies. You could read these interchangeably, but I think they mapped it particularly well, because there's Dan with his hook hand. There's Dan with his hook hand. She also has a stepson who is the son of her husband, Michael Tree. She's close to her stepson. He gets in trouble in college for the alleged date essay, and she tracks down what exactly happened. And it's actually done, I think, really well, because it shows the cost of being accused and the cost of being the accuser. Let's not mince words here. There's a cost to being the accuser. So she's there for him, and there's a particularly, it starts out funny, but it's in the last book. This is volume 5, and this is volume 6, Skeleton in the Closet, because this one ends with Live and Die in Vietnam, which is the perfect way to end it. And this also has, right before To Live and Die in LA, it's got Roger's story, which explains, now this is out of order, but they felt it was a good lead up to Live and Die in LA, which I agree with. It was mapped properly for that. The kind of funny one that starts out funny but doesn't really end funny because it gets serious is Horror Hotel, which deals with a guy that wants to set up this hotel as like a horror theme park, and wants them to spend the night there to prove that it's not haunted, and havoc ensues. But it's all kind of hokey until it gets serious. And this page illustration exactly exemplifies her. She takes crap from no one and is ready to defend herself. So let's go over the order once more without my commenting, because I'll comment some more after this. Cold Dish number 1. Deadline is number 2. Heroin Withdrawal number 3. Fallen Tree, which just came out, is volume 4. One Mean Mother, volume 5. Skeleton in the Closet is volume 6. And that's the order you definitely should read them in if you're going to commit to this. Oh, yeah, it also deals with homophobia. Skeleton in the Closet. Yeah. It deals with homophobia, too. So, I mean, she tackles a lot of everything, and Max Allan Collins is not afraid to tackle all these issues, and he does them really well. Now let's talk about some things that are a little bit out of order. I already told you about Roger's story, which is out of order on purpose. They mapped it so that it would lead into Live and Die in Vietnam. So you will go through this and you'll notice that in Fallen Tree, if you look through the contents, they do have the contents at the beginning of what they have. Number 36 is missing. What's that about? Where is 36? Well, I emailed my new best friend Will from Titan Comics, and he got an update from Terry Beatty, who said that was the Ms. Tree Mike Mist team-up story, Whatever Happened to Johnny Dynamite. We reprinted that in the Johnny Dynamite collection from Yo Books. I assume that's why it was left out of the ongoing Ms. Tree series. It's a standalone story, so I'm okay with it only being in the Johnny Dynamite book. There's an explanation. So there you go. That's why 36 isn't included. Let's see. In Heroin Withdrawal is missing Roger's story, which appears in Skeleton of the Closet, which I told you about. And I think that's pretty much it as far as the order of the books. There you go. 1 through 6. Or if you'd rather they went like this, because that's how I do mine. This is the order. So there you go. I just can't recommend this book enough. I've found it to be exciting. You are totally invested in the characters. You find yourself rooting for Ms. Tree from the very beginning. The group of people she has doing investigations for her, you find that you are invested in them too. So Max Allan Collins does a good job of getting characters you care about, because really that's the whole thing with comics, is you want characters that you care about. Otherwise, you're not going to get invested in it. I really enjoyed Fallen Tree, which I read this week, since this is the last book to come out, number 4. And the other thing I wanted to tell you is the reason to read it in order is that she has mob dealings. There is a mobster and his organization that has it out for her for various reasons, and she'd like a truce. Does she get it? You're gonna have to read to find out. She handles things her own way, I'll say that for her. There's no real swearing, really. There are some words in it that could be offensive to readers out there. The F word for a homosexual, things like that. But it was written, back in the 80s, or late 80s, and that's how this particular character thinks of them as. Does this particular character learn a lesson? Yeah, I think so. I think that, peace and love, man. We all need to get along together. We're all we've got. That doesn't appear in this book, that particular thing I'm talking about. But she does have a lover at one point, and she has not had somebody in a long time, and she gets pregnant, and that's another through line for the second half of this run. And it has to deal, she has to figure out what she wants to do with the baby. Does she want to have it? And if so, is she going to be a capable mother? Because all she's had so far is her stepson from her first marriage. So violence, there's plenty. There's no nudity. There's some potentially hurtful words, but they're used organically and as part of the story. And you get to see Terry Beatty's art improve right in front of your eyes, to the point where he's now a very well-known artist. And what I like about the book also is that Max Allan Collins doesn't revisit the same crime scene all the time at all. It's always set in a different, he doesn't go back to the well. There are always different stories that are completely unrelated to another, if I'm explaining that right. It's not like he keeps, it's not full of tropes. She deals with all kinds of crimes, all kinds of investigations, and they're varied and interesting and really well done. So I hope I've done a good job of telling you about Ms. Tree, because I have rereading it. This has a high rereadability factor for me. And it also gave me nostalgia for when they first came out, but they're still very up to date, because some of the things, as I said, are still relevant now. There are always going to be things that tend to hang around, and women and men falling in love, women and women, men and men, chasing the ghosts that haunt you, like Dan's issue with Vietnam and his missing brother. There's always stuff. Nobody gets through this life unscathed, as Harrison Ford says in Shrinking on Apple TV, which I am not getting a paid plug for, but I highly recommend it. Nobody gets through life unscathed, and all of these people have things that haunt them, as we all do. So there we go on Ms. Tree, one of my favorite books, and Fallen Tree may make the list of top books of 2024. Let me read it again and see. It is excellent. So peace and love, peace and love. I hope you are a fan of this series, or become a fan of this series as much as I am. And please give this video a like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, and feel free to comment. I'm always happy to talk to my viewers in the comment section. So peace and love, peace and love. Thank you for watching Omnidog's Vault. I really appreciate it. Peace and love, and be good to each other out there.